All righty, welcome in another edition of the Chico Bormann Show here on the Big Play Sports Network. So great to have you along and so great to have our next guest along. It's been a few weeks and a lot has gone down and a lot is coming up as far as Major League Baseball is concerned. So we bring in the three-time All-Star, four-time Gold Glover, host of the Boone podcast. He is 14-year veteran Bret Boone. Boonie, how are you?
Hi, Chico. I'm doing good. How you been over there and where you live?
We live
Ohio?
in Cleveland. Yeah, in Ohio. Yes. Ohio.
I used to live in Ohio.
You didn't happen to get the T-shirt from Boonie that he was going to send us, the show T-shirt?
Still in transit.
Oh, okay. All right.
I need an address.
Okay, we'll get that to you. We'll get that.
Yeah.
All right, Boonie. Here's the thing. It is, and I know you're mostly an old school guy. Hell, I'm kind of an old school guy, but I would be lying to you if I said the extra wild cards and the idea teams right now. We're 3 weeks away from the trade deadline, and teams do not know. Except for maybe 5, teams do not know, are we buyers or are we sellers? Or are we a little bit of both? From a fan's perspective, I think it's pretty damn entertaining. How about you?
I agree with you. I think it's added another level of intrigue. It's moving it from a month to go in the season. It's a combination. It's more seats at the table, obviously 12 seats at the table for the postseason, and moving that from a month to the end of August to the end of July. So now you've got way more people with hopes of getting to the postseason, and you've got to make the decision 2 months out. I think it's awesome. I think from a strategic standpoint, from an excitement standpoint, each city, and when their team sells or their team buys or their team stands pat, they're just yelling. But that's what it's about.
Yeah.
As much as I get annoyed with people that have no clue what they're talking about, arguing on Twitter or arguing on sports talk radio, I have to sit back for a minute and go, that's the reason I got to play this game, because of these passionate fans that really care and want to tell you they should have done this or they should have done that. I think it's great. From a player's perspective, I don't like it because I think it cheapens the 162 game season.
Ooh.
And
okay.
And man, I just thought those years, and it's not like I had 10 years of doing it, but those years when you win a pennant, it's kind of like, wow, what a grind. And we finished on top. And that doesn't happen anymore. I mean, you can be a real average team and get to the postseason. So I think it's cheap in the postseason because anybody can get there now. Nevertheless, now stepping away from the game and not being an active player for a lot of years, I look at it as a fan and I love it. I love it because it keeps baseball in the forefront. It keeps people talking. And I just love the strategic standpoint. So fan-wise, entertainment value, good for the game, getting more eyeballs on the game that I played my whole life. I think it's definitely a win-win.
See, I'm glad, Boonie, I'm glad you brought up the 162 because it seems like in other sports, the NBA especially, they've got I think they have their own terminology for load management, right? Well, these guys, we just want you to be ready for the postseason. Yeah, the commissioner's office says, well, if we think you're healthy and you're not playing, we're going to fine you. But in the end, what this comes down to, with more seats at the table, and let's face it, more seats at the table, and then television revenue. And it just seems like baseball was kind of last to get on track with it. The NFL extended their schedule and allowed more teams. And baseball doesn't have to do that because it's already 162. But what it did do is, it made it so much more intriguing. Right now, we're talking about races as if it's the final 2 weeks of the season. But from your perspective, I guess it seems like Major League Baseball has finally, and I don't know if this is good or bad, caught up, for lack of a better term, to the NBA and the NFL in that, yeah, the grind, there's that badge of honor that you're right was big back in the day. That badge of honor for 162 or I played 158, we'd rather preserve you if you're hobbled a little bit and get you as close to 100% for the postseason as we can.
Yeah. I mean, okay, if you want to be the purist and just say, okay, let's get the best of the best. Let's make sure the best team wins and reward them. Well, I mean, look at the All-Star game. The All-Star game is cheapened now.
Yeah.
You've got 35 seats at the All-Star game. There used to be, for us, it was a 25-man roster. The All-Star game, 25-man roster. They've added like 10 spots to the All-Star game. So 10 more players per year get to check off on their resume, I was an all-star. If they played 15 years ago, they wouldn't have been an all-star. If they played 30 years ago, they wouldn't have been an all-star. So if you want to think like that and purely purist, I would go back to my father's generation where two teams made it. Two teams made it to the postseason. That's it. You win your division. The East and the West.
Wow.
They battle it off for one playoff round, 7 games. Got to be 7 games because that shows the depth and the quality of the roster you've constructed. Now you get to the playoffs, you got these 5-game series, right? Well, if you got a horse number 1 and a horse number 2, you can get through most of the playoffs with just your top 2 starters. It doesn't get into the depth. I think the great teams are when you get into that 4th and 5th starter. Who's got the depth? We don't have to see that in 2024 until obviously you get to the World Series and there's a 7-game set. So if I'm lining up in a purist world where I just want the best of the best, there's 2 teams in each league that go to the postseason. They play, they get to the World Series, and the best team wins. They're all 7-game series, and that's the way it goes. That's how you're going to get the best team and a true world champion every year. But these guys aren't going to be making $25 and $30 million with that format. I think you're right, Chico, when you say they finally came around and got to the NBA and the NFL. It's dollar signs. And as a player, and if I was a current player right now, whatever you're doing, it's working because I'm getting paid pretty darn good. So I think you have to move forward. You know, we can get stuck in our old ways and no, when I played and back in the day, this is why baseball is great. It is great for all those reasons, but I think you have to move forward with the changing of times. We've progressed as a culture, and this is the way sports is given to us today. And I think baseball, with all the moving parts and the fact, like we like to stay as much as what we've been like for hundreds of years. I think the changes have been good, and I've got to admit, I actually enjoy it. And I really like watching the postseason. The entertainment value has gone way up.
Yep, absolutely. Talking to Bret Boone, former All-Star second baseman, joining us here on the Chico Bormann Show. All right, our Guardians, your Guardians, my Guardians, our Guardians, Boonie.
Man, they're
57 and 34, 5 games ahead of Minnesota. But there is, I don't want to say it's the normal angst, but there is some angst right now. Because the rotation, which, normally is kind of a staple for these guys. Now, they've had injuries. We know about Shane Bieber. But, now you're counting on, like, Ben Lively's and even Carrasco, who's done, pretty darn well. The kid they got starting today against Detroit, I think was drafted by Philadelphia, was in San Francisco, Spencer
Howard.
Yeah, Spencer Howard. So, I mean, Matthew Boyd they signed in the hopes of maybe trying to – but I don't think there's going to be any question. They have to go out and find a veteran arm for that rotation. The problem is everybody wants one, and there's not many out there to be had.
There's not. And even the teams that are losing games right now, you look at the Detroit Tigers, I don't think they're going to be in the postseason. Long way to go. I'm not counting them completely out, but on paper, it doesn't look like they're going to be a postseason team this year. And you got a guy like a Skubal, who's one of the top pitchers in all the game. Do you let him go? You look at the Kansas or you look at the Chicago White Sox, they're definitely not going to the postseason. I think you can kind of mark that down right now. But do they trade a Crochet? Those are the questions, because there's very few number one, bona fide number one arms. And then you got the rest that I'd like to have him for a postseason run. You look at that Toronto Blue Jay rosters. Toronto's probably the most underperforming team that I've seen this year. I actually picked them to win the AL East. How am I looking right now? But you've got a Gausman, a Berrios, a Bassett, and Kikuchi, who are all going to be entities at the trade deadline where GMs are going to be inquiring about those pitchers. So do they let them go? You're right. Cleveland needs a pitcher just like Baltimore needs a pitcher. Means and I'm trying to think who
Bradish,
else.
Kyle Bradish, yep.
They both went down for Baltimore.
Yep.
Although Baltimore is still pitching top of the league, it's always nice to have an extra starter. Cleveland's in that ballgame. Everybody is. The Yankees. Wheeler came out of the game the other day for the Phillies. They haven't put him on the IL yet as of now, but that's a question mark. So everybody's going to be looking for pitching. It's just where are you going to get it from and what's going to be the price for that pitching at the deadline. Williams is back for Cleveland.
Yes. And I'll tell you.
Scuffled out of the gate, had a good outing recently against Detroit.
Yeah, and getting him could be we talked about
that is huge. We talked about him a year ago. You
Yep.
pointed him out to me, actually, Chico, and you said, I like this kid. He's a horse, and I watched him for a couple starts. I really liked his future. Then he got hurt, and they weren't going to be with him for the majority of this season, and I thought that was too bad. Another reason, Williams for me was a huge reason that I thought Cleveland had a chance to be good with Bieber at the top of the rotation and a talent like Williams coming along. That's why I thought Cleveland was going to be a good team this year. All of a sudden, Bieber goes down, Williams is out, and I'm going, well, they're going to be middle of the road team. Well, once again, just like my Toronto pick, look how I'm sitting right now. Cleveland best record in the American League.
And see, that's and I'm glad you brought that up because we were all I had Senior VP Bob DiBiasio on last week. We were talking about Larry Doby Day, but also talked about the team and kind of what you said. Like, man, if the rotation isn't going to be able to carry them, there's always the questions on the bullpen. The bullpen has been lights out, and I guess my question to you is.
Bullpen's the best bullpen in baseball.
Yes. And I think to this point, absolutely you can say that. There is a concern, though, because that bullpen has been taxed a great deal in keeping them. They've done tremendous work. So is there a sense that I don't necessarily like this strategy, but I'm hearing people say it. Well, if you can't go out and get that starting pitcher, then just add more arms to the bullpen. I feel like in some cases that works. I feel like with this Guardians team, though, they've got to get a starter. I mean, I know it's also the obvious statement, but I feel like the bullpen, they're already great, and you can add some more arms. They need a veteran starter. Eric Fetty, Chicago, I don't know who it is. Flaherty, no idea, but they've got to get somebody.
No, I agree with you. I don't think you mess with this bullpen. Yeah, it's taxed. There's a lot of bullpens taxed right now. The best bullpens in the end will come out of it. I would go get a starter just like the other teams and the general managers. They believe me. First thought is starter. Then if the starter doesn't become available, there's not a deal to be had. Yeah, you can always bolster the bullpen. But I look at it. If I would have told you at the beginning of the season, Chico, okay, Allen's going to have almost a 6 ERA. He's going to be hurt. Bieber's gone down. We also don't have Williams for half the season, and McKenzie's going to get optioned to AAA. What would you say that the Guardians' record would be right now?
About 15, 20 games below 500.
Exactly. So I look at Cleveland. I look at this team. I've been watching them, and I'm thinking, are they for real? I think like a lot of people, month into the season, they're playing great. Anybody can play great for a month, 2 months, 3 months. They're still doing it. At this point, I'm a believer. They've got something special going on in Cleveland. Vogt's first year, which is remarkable, coming in and doing a great job. I think this team's for real. I think they're really good. I think they've got a real good chemistry, and I think they had a good chemistry a year ago. But I think they've added to that this year with what Kwan's doing. At the top of that order. The table setters just unbelievable. Naylor's maturing as a player, hitting homers, and you got the constant in Ramirez, who we all love. Fry's doing a great job. They're a lot of fun to watch, and Clase's back to be a Clase, 0.8 ERA, and just all those guys getting the ball to Clase. It's just this is a good team, and the other teams around baseball, because you didn't hear it from the analysts, from everybody. They're always talking about the Phillies,
right,
and the Baltimore
Dodgers,
Orioles and the Yankees, and Cleveland was always, in the disc. Well, they better pay attention to Cleveland, because this team's for real.
Boonie, let me go back to Toronto just for a moment, because you mentioned their pitchers, but it wasn't that long ago Ross Atkins said, it doesn't make any sense for us to trade Bo Bichette and Vlad Guerrero. Well, both those guys, I believe, are going to be free agents after this season. So if that still holds true, and I know that was 2 weeks ago, and in this day and age with all the, movers and shakers, it can change daily. But if they still believe that, and it doesn't make sense for them to move Vladdy or Bo Bichette, they've got to sign them like right now to an extension, right? You're not just going to let these guys walk for nothing.
I don't believe what they're saying. They're saying, yeah, we're going to make one more run with it, with our youth movement of, the Bo Bichette, Vladdy.
I don't buy it either.
They brought in Turner, who's been a great player for a lot of years. Justin Turner, Springer, kind of that era. Okay, we're going to give it one more shot. I don't believe what they're saying. I don't believe it. I think all of them are available. I think all that pitching staff is available is going to be available at the trading deadline. And if the deal comes up, I think they'll make that deal. You talk about Bo Bichette, and he's a young, talented, one of the best young, talented players in the game. I don't think you're going to get a lot for Bo Bichette right now, to be honest with you. I think out of the lot right there, Turner's 39 years old. Springer hasn't been what they expected when they signed that big deal coming over from Houston. Vladdy, his power production's gone down every year. Now
could end up in Houston. Yeah,
he's an all-star this year,
right?
And Bo Bichette's he's got 4 homers. He's hitting 220. I don't think there's people breaking down walls to get Bo Bichette right now. Yeah. Vladdy, I think out of that lot, the pitchers are all going to be, if the pitchers are all available, you're going to have a lot of takers for that rotation in Toronto if they decide to go that route. But from a position player standpoint, I don't think there's much value there. The only one that'll bring you something in return, and I think, is a Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
How much are we? I don't think we are overblowing it. Like let's take, if I think for argument's sake, Garrett Crochet is the guy that everybody's talking about wanting, maybe the top guy on the radar. Who knows? You'd have to pay so much for him as far as prospects because he's controllable. But here's the thing with Crochet, Boonie, is if I'm a team, let's say the Guardians, that were to just sell off the farm to get Garrett Crochet. Any team that acquires him, this guy, I mean, he's on a pitch count, and this guy has never been in this situation before, not only where you're up there as far as pitches, but now you're talking about, and there's something to this, I believe, like when it's crunch time, those innings and those pitches, there's even more strain. So I feel like Garrett Crochet, yes, he's going to get a lot of looks and certainly a lot of people calling on him. But if you're one of those general managers, knowing full well that you're going to have to scale back his innings, is that going to deter you from going after him?
Absolutely. And we're in that generation of keeping you on pitch counts. That's working really well. Yeah. How are the injuries in today's game on those pitch counts? I was listening to, on a serious note, I was listening to John Smoltz speak, and I was Smoltz and I were teammates, and I really respect his intellect when it comes to the pitching. He really, not only was he a great Hall of Fame pitcher, but he really knows the nuances, how to train the arm, how it works. And he was blasting it the other day. How is this on pitch counts? Look at the injuries that we have today, the way we baby these kids in the minor leagues and then bring them to the big leagues. And go full force, and you can't throw so many pitches or this, and how's that working out? I mean, there's a Tommy John every other day in the big leagues.
Yep.
So until we get away from whatever the current system is we have, how we bring up and how we mature these young arms, whatever they're doing, whatever science they're using, it ain't working. So they need to change that. So yes, without a doubt, when you say he's going to be babied and he's going to be on a pitch clock and he's going to get a certain amount of innings, yes, that's going to be a deterrent, I think, for a lot of general managers. Another place you can look, I think, trading deadline. I've watched this because I keep a special eye on that American League West. Seattle's atop that division. Houston's coming.
Yeah.
Houston's not going away. They're coming, and they're going to be in the mix at the deadline to bolster that rotation. But I look at that Texas Rangers team. Won the World Series a year ago. Unbelievable run. Offensively, they're at the top of all the categories. They just found a way. They had that magic mix in the postseason where everybody in that bullpen did their job, and it just worked out for them. They won a World Series. I think you look that Texas Rangers team, I think they're going to be sellers at the deadline. You've got a Scherzer. A lot of people aren't going to be willing to pay that price for someone his age, and is he the Scherzer of yesteryear? DeGrom, is he going to come back? That's a coin flip for me if DeGrom pitches. So that they're looking for that in the second half of the season. But you've got some interesting guys on that rotation. You got a Haney, the lefty, doing a nice job for him. Gray, doing a nice job for him. Lorenzen, doing a really nice job for them. They picked him up this offseason. He's been great. Evaldi, would you part with Evaldi in 3 weeks from now if they determined we're not going to be in the postseason this year? That's interesting. That's a guy.
Yep.
That's a guy that people would be lining up for.
Bulldog.
Give me some Evaldi for that postseason run. Kind of the modern day Scherzer of 3 years ago. That hey, bring in the killer.
Yep.
That's going to be interesting to watch that Texas Rangers team, because I think that's where all the eyes would go from a GM standpoint.
All right. He's Bret Boone. A few more minutes with the 14-year, I almost said 14-time All-Star. Boonie, you should have been a 14-time All-Star, Dean.
No, that's not true, but I should have been a 5-time All-Star, and I should have 7 Gold Gloves.
I think,
for the listening audience.
I'll say this right now. I've said this before, and only because I was just about to misspeak. I'm going to say it again. I know he was your teammate, and that team, you guys won so many games.
0-1?
Yes. You should have been the MVP over Ichiro. Dude,
absolutely.
331.
It's not even close. I've told him this too.
And I know Ichiro, but think about Think about these stats.
You ready? I don't do this. I don't do this very often. You ready for something?
I teed it up for you, so go ahead. It's on me. Go ahead.
We've done it before, haven't we?
Yeah. Well, way back we did, but go ahead.
We'll do it again.
Yeah.
Let's just remind people.
What's Boom. His numbers, honest to God, in 2001 were absolutely insane. Okay. What that was the Mariners. Okay. I can't read that from here.
Boom, can you read it for me?
It says Mariners MVP Bret Boone. It is the BBWAA Seattle chapter.
Yeah.
Is where it's
right,
from.
which is you get a team MVP on every team every year. The local writers, they vote on who is the MVP of the Seattle Mariners, right?
But I mean,
okay.
Here's what I would say.
Here's the deal.
Okay.
How can you be the 2001 MVP of your team, but you don't win it for the league? Your teammate does? Think about that for a while.
And I'm just going to say this, and because I got to talk about Uncle Arnie before we get out of here. But all I'll say is this: yes, Ichiro was a phenom. I loved watching him just as much as the next guy. But Boom, think about this: still a Gold Glover, right? So it's not like, well, he's just bringing offense. He played a demanding position, played it very well, Gold Glove caliber. 330. 37 home runs, Boonie?
331.
331. I was rounding down, sorry. 331, 37 home runs, 141 runs batted in.
I had 200 hits that year, too.
200. I mean, any other year, that's a landslide.
Okay, Chico, this is what I love to, it's fun for me when I see Ichiro. I always ask him, hey, send me that trophy anytime you want. But I found this. Ichiro was such a big part of that team.
He was.
A huge part at the top of that. Yes, I mean, you think about it as a player, and yeah, of course you wanted to win it. I realized a long time ago, though, and I joke about 7 Gold Gloves and 5. There are snubs every year.
Yeah.
People don't get, and I talk about it with other players too. But you can't get caught up in that. It is what it is what it is. You can only control what you control. And at the end of the day, you put the numbers up, and sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. I look at Gold Gloves at the end of the year and I go, how could I not have won that Gold Glove? And then I look at a year that I won it and go, how could I have won that Gold Glove? So it's reputation. I look back on it, man, 2001 was such a cool year. And of course you want that MVP trophy. They don't just hand those things out. But I wasn't bitter. I wasn't mad. It's like, it was kind of a damn it. Wish I'd have won that thing, but it is what it is. And my dad taught me a long time ago, life isn't fair, and you can only control what you can control. So that was a great team. Great memories from that year. Awesome teammates. Ichiro had a phenomenal year. Yeah, I wish I would have won the MVP, but it's something that doesn't really keep me up at night. Never has.
Is that sage advice from Bob Boone? Is that working for Uncle Arnie right now? Because it wasn't that long ago. Remember, Uncle Arnie was back to being the smartest man in baseball. Now all of a sudden, I mean, they're pitching.
He stinks. Aaron stinks. Isn't it amazing, Chico? Isn't it amazing that last year Aaron was the worst manager in the world? Obviously, this offseason, he came to his brother Bret. I taught him how to manage, and for the first 2.5 months of this season, he's the greatest manager of all time. And I called him the other day and I said, did you forget how to manage? Because we all know that it's not the players and not the players' health.
It's Boone.
It's the
Uncle
manager.
Yeah.
And if he brought in the lefty or the righty, it's crazy. But that's what makes this world go round. Like I said, that's what makes talk radio. Everybody's calling for his head. That Yankee team is still going to be a real viable foe going into the postseason. They got to get everybody right. They got to get everybody healthy. Giancarlo Stanton, a huge part of that offense that I think is the key to the offense. Everybody talks about Judge and Soto. Yeah, they're both MVP candidates. But Stanton's presence in the middle of that lineup, being that big guy in the middle, that you can't just pitch around Soto and Judge and be okay, because Stanton will hurt you. He was doing that this year. He had 18 home runs when he went on the IL. He's been on the IL now about 3 weeks. He's the key. He'll be back after the All-Star break, and is a huge part of that. They've got to kind of right that starting pitching. It was flawless for the first 2.5 months. They've run into a little problem there. Cole's back, but he's kind of still in spring training mode. What the Yankees need to do at the trade deadline, they really need to go out and bolster that bullpen. The numbers say they're the top. They're the third bullpen in the AL from a numbers perspective.
Right.
But I'm watching it on a daily basis. They need some bullpen help. I think if they go out and bolster that bullpen, the Yankees are going to be just fine, and they're going to be in position to make a run in the postseason.
Boone, this is how crazy baseball is, and this season has been. But the Yankees without Garrett Cole, remember they start the year and is that rotation? It was 2.79 ERA up till June 12th, which was when Garrett Cole was out. We had Luis Gil pitching like a Cy Young candidate. He was at that point. Now all of a sudden, Cole returns, and I know it'll probably even out somewhat, but from June 13th to now, Yankee starters have an earned run average of 644. Like, I mean, Carlos Rodon is getting shelled, and Gil's getting shelled.
Yeah.
You just wonder.
It was good to see Gil righted the ship. Stroman pitched okay yesterday. Rodon's been the one that's been shaky. He had like 3 bad outings in a row. Nestor's been kind of the one that just kind of keep doing his thing. Cole coming back. I think they got a little fatigued, especially the Gil kid. He's not used to going at this pace.
Yep.
But he righted the ship last time, pitched a really good game. So I think he's going to be all right. The Cole thing, I think the more important thing is around June 13th is when Stanton, that's around the time Stanton went down. So I think there's more to that than just, Holmes had some rough outings, the great closer for New York. He had some real rough outings. Last night he went 1-2-3 and they won a 2-1 ball game. So this is just stuff you go through. There's not too many teams that endure this 162 and don't hit a 2 or 3 week tough period. It's kind of a part of the landscape. Looking at you look at the Yankees right now, they're still 56-38. And that's after going, I think, 6-14 over their last 20. So the good thing about getting out of the gates hot and playing as good as they did is you have a little luxury for a time where you can go through a rough period, and that's what they're doing right now.
All right, in closing, we know Uncle Arnie is a huge fan of the Chico Bormann Show. Boonie, please pass along to Arnie. In Arnie we trust. We believe that Arnie will get it turned around and that Arnie has not forgotten everything that he knew in the first half of the season.
That's right. Well, it happens.
It does.
Boom, give me the address. I will send you the official Boone podcast.
Autograph
t-shirt.
too. Autograph too.
Autographed, and that's it.
How about that MVP plate you were just showing us, that team MVP?
No, we can't do that.
I mean, if you don't win the AL MVP, then what the hell does the team MVP mean?
Exactly. Ichiro, if Ichiro's watching, you can send me my MVP trophy.
Boonie, you're the best. We'll do it again soon, pal. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All righty. Always fun catching up with our buddy Bret Boone. And, yeah, Uncle Arnie's he's really hearing it out there in the Bronx now, as you can imagine. But it's a crazy world. It's been a crazy season, including our Guardians, and seeing what they are going to do near the trade deadline. And, oh, by the way, the Major League Baseball draft, who will go number one? We're going to talk a little bit about that. And I've got a problem with Red Sox fans over the last 48, 72 hours. I'll tell you what that's all about as well. Chico Bormann Show, more to come right here on the Big Play Sports Network. All righty, welcome back. And as we said, great stuff from Boonie there. And, of course, the Guardians. Don't forget the Major League Baseball draft number one pick coming up on Sunday. Is it going to be Charlie Condon? Is it going to be Travis Bazzana? Is it going to be J.J. Weatherholt? And, yes, all three are in play. And, yes, it is about money. Somebody's rolling their, of course it's about money. They get $18 million to spend. I think they're allotted like $10 million for that first one. They don't have to spend that. If they don't spend that, they don't reach that threshold, they can use that on a guy. Say they have 3 picks in the first 50. So let's say they get a guy at 36, where if they have some extra money and this kid's thinking about, well, if the offer isn't good, I'm going to go back to school. The Guardians can say, well, we saved some money on our number one pick. We want to sign you as well. That happens also. I know I'm like you. I kind of want the splash, and I'm kind of Bazzana's become my dude. Condon for a while, but now it's Bazzana or Bazzana, tomato, banana, Bazzana. But now they're saying J.J. Weatherholt, who, by the way, out of West Virginia, going into this season, was the number one pick. Like, oh, it's J.J. This is why you let the season play out. Boom, do you have? Last week it was Bazzana fever for you. Bazzana Bonanza. Who is it today?
I'm still a sucker for the Bazzana Bonanza. However, there is something to this West Virginia prospect that you mentioned. And the only reason that the Guardians may not take him would have to be just the fact that he's had 2 consecutive nagging hamstring injuries.
Hamstrings. Yeah.
But the idea that could save you money and you could walk away with potentially, the guy with the higher ceiling. I want to see the Guardian.
Bazzana's. They're all ceilings are big.
You could make the case that all 3 of them are of the same tier, and the only reason that that JJ isn't considered to be as highly regarded is because of the lingering injury.
And because of that, they're thinking that the rumor is that the asking price is going to be about $2 million less than it would be for Bazzana or Condon. So we shall see. That is coming up. All right. So we've got the All-Star break. The Guardians, by the way, are taking on Detroit today, trying to avoid losing that series, the fourth game of that series. And After Detroit, they have the Tampa Bay Rays and then the All-Star break. So you may have heard, many of you probably have heard, that Jose Ramirez decided, I'm going to go for the home run. I'm going to go in the home run derby again. Didn't do so well last time. Remember, he could only hit from the right side. He doesn't know if he's going to hit from the left or the right side this time around. But Boston Red Sox fans, forget about the home run derby. They went on a tear, basically, like, this guy, oh, by the way, and his handle on Twitter is Devers Enjoyer. What are you, 12? He says you'll never guess which one is an all-star starter. And he's got Devers and Jose's numbers side by side. Okay, Devers has a higher batting average. Jose has more homers. He has 21 more RBIs. He has 14 more stolen bases and plays a much better defense. This guy apparently didn't know. Red Sox fans, they showed a clip of Rafael Devers making a bare hand play at third, and I swear to God, they think it's the only time a third baseman has made a bare hand play. Rafi Devers, and this is not me being, I'm just telling it like it is. Rafi Devers led all third basemen in errors last year with 19. Statistically, he's been one of the worst over the last few years. But I don't even know why. I like Rafael Devers. Devers is a very good hitter. But, why would you go? They started saying, oh, well, here's Jose Ramirez and his fake PR team. What the hell does that mean? I mean, I know you're jealous. I know you're sore over there in Boston and whatever. But this is a bad look. If you want to say, hey, we're Devers fans, we think he's, the better third baseman, that's fine. But don't do it by tearing down Jose. And then, like I said, we had one guy just totally blatantly said Devers is without a doubt a better defensive third baseman than Jose Ramirez. And I'm like, dude, you, without a doubt, have never watched baseball outside of Fenway Park, because it would be clear. And I mean, just look at the numbers. Yeah, it's Red Sox fans. I'm telling you, they were tolerable until the curse of the Bambino. Up until that time, it was actually fun going to an Indians-Red Sox game, then Indians-Red Sox game, and they were fun to talk to. Then they broke that curse, and it was like, well, we're the greatest sports team ever to live. So I had to get that off my chest. What else do we have? Obviously, Guardians we talked about. Brown, by the way, Boom, you realize, what's the date today? July the
7-11.
7-11. Good job, Boom. And just shy of 2 weeks, training camp is here. Their first preseason game's August 10th. Beginning of September, they open up against the Dallas Cowboys. Tom Brady will be on the call. Can't believe that football's absolutely here as well. So much good stuff going on, and we will do it all again next week. By then, we'll see who the Guardians do draft. Will it be Bazana Bonanza? Will it be Boom with the great breakdown, by the way, of J.J. Weatherholt's hamstrings? I thought that was good. Seems like Charlie Condon is going to be too expensive. That's kind of what the feel I'm getting.
That juice ain't worth the squeeze.
That's kind of what they're saying. The dude has launched a lot of home runs, but we shall see. All right, I'm Mike Chico Bormann for Michael Bohm. All of us here at Big Play. Make it a great week, everybody. See ya.